My name is Matt DeCourcy. This is...
I'm sometimes called the other Matt or Matt Watson.
So we are also the hosts of the Startup Hustle podcast, which several people here have been on. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I think this is talking into a microphone to and around and at you is not anything new, but we're going to talk a little bit about finding the right talent at your business. And, you know, that's a moving target for so many people. And it's something that if you get it wrong, you're probably going to get the business wrong.
Well, I talk to people every day that are other entrepreneurs, either through the podcast or just in general. And yeah, talent is always the biggest thing. And especially if you're building an early stage company and people think that, oh, I can't afford to hire a person to do X, Y, Z. So they find whoever they can find to do it. And they don't usually get very good results, right? And a lot of times that could kill your entire company. If you're like, hey, I found this entry-level person that watched 3 YouTube videos and I'm going to trust them to be the, leader of whatever at my company now.
It makes me an expert, bro.
Yeah.
He's talking about me.
Yeah. Well, you watched 4 videos, so you're okay.
The 4th one, I became an expert.
Yeah. But it's a problem. I mean, talent's a problem. And then as an early stage company, you don't have a lot of money, but it's a dangerous thing as well to just hire whoever you can.
So I want to back up for a little bit for just a second, because Matt's humble and he's not gonna, who in here knows who Matt is? All right, so this guy had a $150 million exit before he was 30, did another one before he's 40, as my partner at Full Scale, who last year was an Inc. 5000 company. So I guess when it comes to cred, this guy's got a little bit of it figured out. But when VinSolutions was acquired, how many employees did you have?
About 300 in Kansas City.
Yeah, and that's about how many we have at Full Scale. And our employees are largely in the Philippines and also largely work for companies that are here that have a problem with talent acquisition. And I think we would probably, as we talk about finding the right people, maybe you could just take a second and talk about the problem. When we started Full Scale, our goal wasn't to start Full Scale. We actually became partners in a different business. And I had some people overseas, at the time, but Matt was dealing with some challenges at Stackify when it came to finding the right people, and I think you'd probably be the best to describe those.
Yeah, so my background is in software development, basically been a startup founder, chief technology officer, or startup CEO for the last 20 years. And, software developers are very expensive and they're hard to find. In Kansas City, there's generally negative unemployment for software developers or IT of all kinds. And I don't remember what the number is, but it's usually there's usually 1,000 job openings or something that can't be filled.
I just recorded an episode with Kara from the Tech Council, and she said 6,000.
6,000 in just Kansas City.
Yes, just Kansas City.
So there are 6,000 jobs available in Kansas City that cannot be filled in IT, and they won't be filled. It's not possible to fill them. The entire state of Kansas produces 200 computer science grads a year.
A little higher. It's just under 400.
Okay, 400.
Let me do the math. In 15 years.
Yeah, so in 15 years, we'll get it figured out. So there's not enough talent. So as you described, for my last company, which was a company called Stackify based here in town, I needed to hire 10 software developers. They don't exist. So at best, all I can do is steal somebody from Cerner, Garmin, AMC, whoever, who then has to steal somebody from somebody else. And it's like a wheel that goes round and round and round. And the only people who make any money from that are the IT recruiters, by the way.
Well, and the developers.
And sometimes the
developers. Which we're not opposed to. I mean, good for them. But yeah, it's a supply and demand issue.
So that was a big challenge for me. And the other big challenge I had as remote work became more and more popular before even COVID, is I was constantly getting my employees pulled away from me, recruited away from me. My employees working in IT, working as software developers, got recruited every single day by IT recruiters. And that happens today. It still happens today. Ask any software developer and they'll tell you they get messages on LinkedIn, email, all this crap every week. It's a never-ending battle. They wish if they could have anything for Christmas, it would be having IT recruiters go away. And that's a problem as a business owner. I know that my employees are getting recruited away every single day. So that makes it harder and harder for me to retain them, to keep them happy, to, pay them top salaries, all that kind of stuff. I had a couple people get recruited away within a month time frame. I don't remember where all they went. One of them went to Amazon, actually moved to Seattle. Had a couple others that got recruited away. It was very difficult. And so I had to increase everybody's salaries by like 10 or 20%. And I'm talking, this was like almost 5 years ago now, but having to pay $150,000 a year for software developers to retain them. Just very, very expensive, as a business.
Should we have asked if anyone's an IT recruiter before you said all that?
Is this a safe place? There's no recruiters here.
No,
We're
it's
okay.
Well, so, regardless of, between Full Scale and what he did at Vent Solutions and other things that we've both done, we've probably hired close to 1,000 people. I
Yeah,
think
for
that's
sure.
fair. And
Yes.
then, so that's, at first, I think was an inexact science. And so you have to start to look at the problem you're trying to solve. You want the right people. So what is the right person? Who's the right person at your business? And for those of you that own and run a business, answer that in your head quickly. Who is the right person? Because if you can't do it like that, then you don't know. And it's going to be different. So you talk about a business, our business at 300 employees and $10 million a year in revenue is way different than it was when we had 8 people. We had different people and different needs. And, so I mentioned the Startup Hustle podcast, and one of the things that's been great about doing that, we've published over 1,000 episodes. And last year I had the CTO from Linktree. Everyone know what Linktree is? It's like the thing that you can put in your, it's there because you get one link in your Instagram profile. They got tens of millions of users. But I asked this guy, I said, what's something you've learned from, being around rapidly growing companies? And he said, well, it's pretty simple. It's that sometimes the people that get you from level 0 to 10 are not the same people that are going to get you from level 11 to 5,000. So the needs change. Now, it doesn't mean you need to throw everyone out, throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you got to understand what your needs are. And when you look at Stackify, so at the time, you had 20 employees maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
Right, and you needed 40
Yes.
or 60.
Yes.
Was it even possible for you to find those people in Kansas City, even with a big bank account?
No. No. I could steal them away from another company if I was really lucky and wanted to pay $25,000 to an IT recruiter.
Right. So for you,
Per
the
person.
answer of what was a right employee, so for those of you that aren't familiar with Stackify, just to simplify it, that was code that checked code, but it was really complex. And at one point you told me you were processing over 1 billion data points a day.
Yes.
And in order to have code that checks other code, you got to have people that are masters of the code that are checking. So you actually needed like 8 different types of right people.
We needed a lot of software
Right.
developers. Yes.
Right. So, and I don't want this talk to all just be about tech talent, because I think that so much of the answer and so much of this discussion involves the same things. So like, first off, when I think of the right person, I want someone that's passionate about what I want to hire them for, not someone that just shows up that wants the job because it's an available job. And to me, that has become number one. Are you passionate about the job that I need and want you to do? And I think the reason that that is paramount to success when it comes to finding the right people is, what are you all passionate about? Because if you're passionate about it, it doesn't feel like work. You wake up and do it on the day. So I decided about 15 years ago that my hobby was making money, and I haven't worked a single day since. And it's true, because I feel good about it. I get it. It's okay to be passionate about making money. If you're an entrepreneur, it's kind of useful. But if I'm going to hire someone to work in a software developer role, I want them to be passionate, well, A, about software development, B, about solving problems, and then the specific nature of the tech that they work with. I don't want to hire someone that's willing to be a Python developer because they've done it for a year and that's just what we need. I want people that are like, I love this stuff. I want people that that you have to tell to go home. You're like, you should probably go home, man. You've worked like 1,000 hours. Thank you. But you've worked too much. You need to go get some rest. I don't know, man, I'm not leaving until I solve this problem. That's the right person for a lot of us. Now, those people are really, really hard to find.
They are.
Yeah. So, I think the passion piece, have you ever had, just think about the good employees or the good coworkers that you've had. They're passionate about it. And that extends, that's not just for tech. That could be for marketing. I run into people that are legitimately passionate about being that. They'll say, you know what, I'm that backstage person. I don't like to be up on the stage. I run behind the scenes. I love helping everyone else make it happen. That's a good person to have in a coordinator role or an office position. So passion is number one. If you like, what's your big thing?
Well, I think one of the biggest things about startups is the benefit they provide in creating talent as well. So, there's several people here today that were ex-Cerner guys that had started their own companies, as an example. And so a lot of companies, as they have success, produce other talent. And I think that's really important to the ecosystem here in town. In my first company, Vin Solutions, I know several different people that went and started their own companies as a byproduct of that. So one of those is...
Some of those are really big companies.
Some of them are really big.
Maybe even bigger than Vin Solutions.
We're getting very close, yeah. So like one of them here in town is called Dealer Q. It's not far down the street. And that company's probably worth over $100 million now. It's growing very rapidly. They would have been in the Inc. 500 if they actually applied for it. And most of you probably never heard of them. And that's awesome. So they're one of my favorite things is seeing those success stories, seeing people that worked at these companies, got industry knowledge, got entrepreneurial experience, worked at startups, and then they're able to go and work at other places. And that is actually what we need from a talent perspective. So if I, at Stackify, and I'm like, hey, I need somebody who has a lot of experience in creating SaaS products or product marketing or doing sales for SaaS or whatever the thing is, if there's not a lot of that happens in Kansas City, there's not a lot of talent to draw on, right? There's not a lot of companies I can go recruit from and recruit that talent from. And so the success that we have as startups helps create that talent. And I think that is a really critical part of the ecosystem here, is being able to, those startups creating that talent, retaining those talent in town. And that'll help all of our companies continue to grow going forward, is by using that talent.
You're starting to sound like an IT recruiter.
That'll be $25,000.
All right. So much like Matt said, I want to kind of parlay off that statement. You talk about the ecosystem. Well, Auto Alert is another huge.
Yeah, Auto Alert.
Kansas City's
Conversica, there's a bunch of companies here.
Kansas City's become this bellwether of auto tech, and a lot of that started. So why not? Now, when I look at your experience, all right. So who in here as a founder owns a company? Okay, a lot. All right. So is it fair to say that at an early stage business, there's certain types of people that'll thrive in that, and there's some people that just belong back in corporate America? When I interview you, I make a strong effort to try to get you to not work at my company. I tell you, I say, this is a startup. If you want things to be the same and that plan to be there and that playbook to never change, it's in the right place for you. Because the plan is actually changing minute by minute, and some people don't do that well. So there's some people that expect certain things, and one of those, I think, at a startup is, does the world only happen between 9 and 5? Because last time I checked, the internet never closes. But that could matter if you need the right person. Is the right person? We go back to, sorry, we're kind of tech people at this point, so a lot of our references will come to that. But is the right person the person that's going to, if actually needed, wake up and reset a server at 1 a.m.? Or is it the person that, hey man, I work 9 to 5. I'm corporate person. I'll be there.
It's not my job description.
Oh man. I think maybe that's the next thing. Don't have job descriptions. Your job description is to do whatever needs to be done. Our COO at Full Scale was once an intern. And for a company I started 12 years ago, you can read all about it in $1 Million Bedroom, success story there. But when I interviewed him, I like to ask people, I said, well, what would you really like to do at work all day? And some people say, I like organizing stuff, I like selling, I like doing this. He said, whatever makes us the most money. It's like, dude, when can you start? Right. Right. So, but those are the right people. And I think that really matters. Now, I think one of the things that we've learned as well is you don't try to create the right person. You can sometimes, but yeah, okay. So one of the things we see with our clients or prospects or just happen a lot, people are like, oh, this guy's or gal's a great developer. They should be our lead person. That's our leader right there. And a lot of times that is maybe the worst person to be the leader because
They might be a good single contributor.
right,
Doesn't mean they're the leader.
right. So you can try to slide people into roles that they're not necessarily accustomed to. There's a real simple way to fix that. Matt, would you rather be a team leader or would you rather be on the team with a leader?
I'd rather work with Patrick Mahomes. Where's he at?
Right. Yeah, I think he's headed to Arizona.
I'm going.
Right, you are. That's right. So, anyway, but yeah, I mean that's so it's, you talk about the right people and what is that? That goes like we look at three different things at Full Scale. So we look at a triple win, right? And communication is a big part of that. But a triple win is a win for our company. It's a win for our client. It's a win for our employee, right? That means getting people in the right roles that they want to wake up and do every day. Who in here's had a job they hated? Yeah, so you get it. Don't be the person providing that job is the main thing. You hate your job? Do you have a job?
Yeah.
Is it's Chief Everything Officer?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what CEO really stands for. So yeah, I think that not trying to put people in the wrong roles. You can't always create the right person. Now, what happens when you find someone and you think you have talent and then you don't?
Well, so a good example of this happens a lot is you have non-technical founders that are trying to create a tech company, and a lot of times they're looking for a software developer, right? So they find whatever software developer they can find, and you're like, you're my CTO.
Oh yeah.
That person doesn't know shit about being a CTO, by the way. Not one thing.
We should give them equity too.
Not one thing.
We should give them equity too.
Just because
don't even need to vest it, 40%.
Just because they know how to write code does not mean they know anything about creating technology or business or product or performance, architecture.
Yeah, but that guy owns
managing a
40%
team.
of my company now.
Yeah, sure. Give it to him. And honestly, actually, that's how I started as my first company. Somebody was looking for somebody to write code, and they found me, a 22-year-old kid that didn't know what the hell he was doing, but I'm the CTO now.
Selling computers at Sears. That's how old we are.
Yeah. And
you're getting old, bro.
I guess we got lucky. I was able to figure it out. It took me a bunch of years to figure it out, a lot of on-the-job training. But it usually doesn't work that way. Usually I was talking to another startup last week, the same thing. He hired a college grad to help him create some software, and it turned into a total mess. It sort of worked, but it was very buggy. And then he had to go around town trying to find some other company to rescue it, to try and fix it. But most of them didn't even want to mess with it because it was such a mess. And he ended up hiring some other company here in town, I don't know who it was, paying him like $100,000 to rewrite the software. And so the point is, especially if you're creating a tech company and you don't know a lot about technology, you want to find somebody that's got a lot of experience. You definitely don't want to find an entry-level person to help you do this. It doesn't necessarily matter who you have do this, as long as it's somebody that you can trust and they have a lot of experience in doing it. But most importantly, it's got to be somebody you trust.
I want to talk a little bit about, well, obviously we're here for a little bit talking about finding the right talent, but sometimes you hire people that you think are the right talent and they're not. And I think that there's something I've learned 1,000 employees later, and that's that your best people are good right away. They're good right away. If someone shows up and they're a total dud, they're at best, with a lot of work and effort, you're going to end up with an average person. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to them, because you need to free them up for their future, because that's not the right place for you. But have you ever seen it? You like that?
I like the freeing up your future.
We
thing,
give you
yeah.
a folder with.
We're not firing you. We're freeing up your future.
Sailboat and a plan.
But it's not here.
Yeah. But here's the thing though. I only have 4 people at my company, so if one person, that's not true, but I'm saying if that is you, and one person is terrible, that means 25% of your company sucks. Can you afford to do that? Okay, if anyone knows the movie where they go to start a company and it starts getting really big and half the people there are just terrible employees, but they get rich and change the world anyway. Has anyone seen that movie? No, but it's because that movie doesn't exist. That's never the narrative. Like, great companies that do great things have great people. And with that, now the social network's an interesting thing because it's a kind of a play on, what was his name, Eduardo? Was Eduardo the right guy? That guy wanted to stay in New York and be an intern while he had a rapidly growing startup out in the valley. That wasn't the right guy for the right role. Did he get done dirty? Yeah. And that's not right, but that wasn't the right guy for the role either. He wasn't super passionate about that as well. So maybe they did him a favor. He got a pretty hefty payday out of it. Maybe not as big as Zuck's, but
so to go along with what you're saying, it's all about having the right people. And when you don't have the right person, you've got to fire them as fast as possible. And I know that sounds cliche and everybody has heard that a million times, but I'm just as guilty of it. We usually, our gut instincts are way ahead of our head when it comes to things. We physically, like when we feel depressed or moods and all these things, our body usually is way ahead of us from where our brain is, right? And even when it comes to firing people, I'm pretty sure it's way ahead of us. And actually, one of the companies I work with today, I've been trying to work with somebody, you've heard me complain about this dude for a long time, that is in charge of like WordPress and this stuff. And the company has needed to fire this guy for a long time, and they still won't fire him. And a project that should take a week or two to do is now months overdue. And this guy is literally killing the company because they will not fire him. And this happens a lot. And the problem is the CEO of the company just doesn't want to fire him. She just doesn't have whatever it takes to fire the guy. That's a problem. It's a real problem. If you want to be a leader, you have got to eliminate people that are killing your company as fast as possible.
And once again, I'm telling you, your all-stars show up as all-stars. I mean, let's look at our quarterback. Let's look at Mahomes. That guy stepped on the field and was an MVP.
First game, he comes in the 17th game of the season, right? Or the 16th game of the season, 17th week, and we're all like, why wasn't this guy the starter?
Yeah. My wife asked me if I wanted to go to the Super Bowl. I said maybe next year. It's because we got the right person and the right job. But all right, so back to so we've talked about like who the right people are from. We've done some explaining. There's a lot of things that I think people don't look at when trying to find the right people. Who here has ever given a personality assessment to someone applying for a job? Okay, did you find it helpful, John? Right. So, yeah, sure. So, I in the book that I didn't bring you for free tonight, I have a whole chapter about personality styles. But, there are, back to the right people for the right job, there are certain personality types that, like, you don't want to hire a highly driven accountant because highly driven people usually aren't detail oriented. Right. So, there are tools and other things. At Full Scale, we actually created our own technical assessments. And we did that because the ones that are on the internet were loaded with trivia questions. Like, I think it was Matt was so adamant about that when we decided to create our own assessments, because knowing what PHP stands for as an acronym has never made a PHP developer better at their job. Right. Do you know? I don't even know what PHP stands for. Do you?
Pretty hot programmer.
Yeah, right. That's not in the qualifications for the right employee, by the way. But we created our own assessments, and then so we only hire about 1 in 30 applicants, and that's a real number, and it takes a lot of. So in baseball, they refer to plate discipline, like you don't swing at bad pitches. I think it's important in hiring that you do that as well. I've noticed that anytime I've skipped steps or I swing at a pitch that's close but not quite in the strike zone, I'm like, God, why did I do that? But, so there are tools out there that can help you test someone's knowledge, meet with people multiple times. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've done an interview with someone and man, this could be the person. Then the next one, I'm like, I don't know. And the third one, I'm like, what was I thinking in these last 2 meetings? So, we talked about that fire fast thing. Like, you got to hire slow at the same time and what's your process? What is your process so we use the acronym RARE at Full Scale. We specialize in recruiting, assessing, retaining, and employing. Because that matters too, because if you can find the right people, but you can't retain them and keep them employed, it doesn't matter if you're good at recruitment, right? And so I think the best people want to work at the best companies. The best companies usually have the best pay. They have the best benefits. They have the best equipment. They have the best projects to work on. I mean, our whole entire company has been built on those pillars right there. And that's one thing that our employees at Full Scale, once again, these are people in the Philippines, they're excited to come work on things that they find interesting, things that challenge them. Be prepared to define that. What's challenging about, at Stackify, I would talk to the developers like, dude, this is so hard and I love it. And that is about as excited as software developers get on a lot of days. Matt has taught me that when hiring tech talent, the weirder they are when they show up, usually the better they are. So if you have a developer show up in a suit, that is not your person. If they show up dressed like a Jedi Knight, offer the job right there. Yeah, if they ask where they can put their Lego Death Star.
Weird collectibles, action figures, all of it, yes.
Only if they're still in the box.
Yes, earlier. And even with software developers, there's very different personalities if they're, a front-end developer versus a back-end developer, or a CTO versus like a VP of engineering or a director of engineering. Those, VP or director kind of people are operational. They might be highly technical, but they like people, they like managing teams, they like processes. They may not be as creative, they may not be as innovative, but they like managing people. And then you have people like me, they're like, I don't really want to deal with that. I'd rather hire somebody to manage people, and I'm going to go build cool new stuff, right? And they're different personalities, back to your point earlier about personality. And when you first start out, when you're a really small company, you can't hire like 50 people. So you're going to get one person that might be better for one thing or another, and then eventually you want to move them to the role that's more natural to them.
Yeah, I agree. I tell you what, I'm turning 48 this year, which is 48 years of experience, not 48 years old, by the way. He's been calling
Level
me
48.
He's been calling me old on the podcast.
Level 48.
Out of 300 employees, we only have one that's older than me, so I might actually be old. Yeah, welcome to tech, right? I'll tell you what, I've just gotten a lot more direct. I ask people, I'm like, tell me what drove you crazy at some of your past jobs. What do you hate doing? What's going to happen at work that's going to make you not want to do your job, not want to come here, quit? Just ask people and they'll tell you. I mean, you will and sit back, like hold your own beer and sit back on that, because people really will tell you. And then also ask them, what are you really passionate about? What do you really like doing? Like I just went through, I just hired a new assistant, and with that, I get people showing up, and of course, I had 150,000 social media experts that hadn't made a social media post in over a year. I was like, don't bill yourself as being a social media expert, right? But I'm sitting there asking them, it's like, well, what do you really want to do? If you could construct your dream job, what would it look like? Because you'll find that what people have been doing as a job is usually not what they would prefer to be doing as a job. It's back to that passion play, though. If you can find people that show up and want to do the job, they're going to show up and do the job. A lot. Yeah, now that you may see her at a future event, so I probably shouldn't disclose that too much. But yeah, part of that is you say a lot. Like I actually had people that are like, is the salary correct? Because I was making $12 an hour. I'm like, yeah, because we want to invest in your growth. And I don't know. The thing I don't want to see is people quitting. We're going to do Q&A? Yeah, sure. I think John Bucard already started it. So, yeah, but with that though, ask people. Like, I think that too many interviews are too vanilla, and they're bullshit. Just ask people. Like, I mean, I'll really scare people. I'll be like, "Are you going to be pissed if I say fuck 37 times at work today? Because if you are, you probably won't like working here." It's true.
Just better to get it over with.
Right, but just ask and see what that dynamic's about and what that's like. And the people that are telling you the right thing, I think you can really sense it and feel it. Because someone that doesn't know what they want to do or what they're passionate about probably isn't going to know what they're doing when they show up at work. So, yes, Kevin, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, Kevin from Peoria. I've got a question for you guys. You've talked a lot about...
How do you spell Peoria?
P-E-E... No. Anyway, you guys have talked a lot about like who the right people are, people with passion, qualifications, those types of things. Where? Like, where do you find people now? Because I think that's the challenge that I hear a lot of people, like they might see the world through the same lens that you do about wanting to find people with passion, wanting to find people with the right aptitude, wanting to find people that are good fits early. Where do you find these people?
You want me to answer that?
Go ahead. I mean, I think it depends a lot on the role and what you're looking for.
I recruited the first 100 employees at Full Scale straight off of LinkedIn. I mean, like, very copy and paste messagey kind of way. I went and like literally looked up the titles that I wanted to hire. I put a shitload of connection requests out there. As they got accepted, I sent a message, same one, every single one of them. Hi, my name is Matt DeCourcy. I'm the CEO and founder of Full Scale. And at that time, we're a rapidly growing company here in Cebu City in the Philippines. We're hiring. You seem like the kind of person that might be great at what we do. Our hiring process starts here. And then it was a link to an assessment.
Yeah,
right?
and you also took a lot of pleasure in rating our competitors of their
I
talent.
did, because those people didn't want to work there anyway. But it's true, and there was, and I say that in an ethical way. I ran into a lot of people that were showing up. They were doing interviews. They're like, "I get treated like shit at my job. I fucking hate this place." And then when the fourth and fifth person tells you that from the company, because I hired 2 people from one company, and literally in the next 2 days, the rest of the company applied. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to like clean a company out. But so I did it through LinkedIn. And then, as we grew, that evolved. So first off, you should know that if you're going to place an ad about employment, that is a special category that you need to disclose, like Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them, they ask. It's just a protected category, which means you have to follow some different rules, meaning you can't only advertise to people that are male 25 to 34, right? So you do have to have a broader scope with that. But yeah, I mean, we do all of our recruitment started with LinkedIn. I'd say the first 100 employees, that's actually not 100% true, because our existing employees started bringing other people with. So my second is ask the people that work at your company are ready if they know someone else that wants to come work. Because what we found is that our employees would be like, I'd sit there and meet with them. I'd be like, so how many more software developers do you know? And they're like, well, I know a bunch. I'm like, okay, well, why haven't they applied here? Because I only think 2 of them are any good. Well, thank you for that. Right. And then sometimes you just need to ask. But it's all been through network. And now so we are, according to the guy at the Filipino consulate, we have been the fastest growing technology company in the Philippines for a couple of years now. And with that, we've grown a little bit more sophisticated. I mean, we have like 6 people that do recruitment now and stuff like that. But the word of mouth's already out there. And by the way, that's important too. Like, check yourself out. You ask the people that work at you to do a Glassdoor review or something like that. You're probably, by the way, those people that you figured out weren't the right people, they definitely took the time to give you a Glassdoor review, but not the one that you wanted.
To follow up to your question, though, I think usually recruiting away from your competitors or people that have similar experience you're looking for is super valuable, right? Like, if you were creating an automotive software company today, I would tell you you know what, you should probably go look at who works at Vin Solutions right now and try and recruit them, because I bet they have some experience that would be really helpful for you, right? But you could also add to that CDK, Reynolds & Reynolds, DealerTrack, and like 50 other companies to that list. And there you go. You got a short list of people with that industry experience. Go recruit them. But same thing, if like, hey, I need somebody who knows how to do SaaS enterprise sales. It's like, well, maybe it should be somebody from Cerner or this company or this company or this company, and try and recruit from there. But the other part of this is thinking more global. You know, there's only 3% of the population lives in the United States. Less than 10% of all
3% of the developer.
world. No, 3% of the world population.
okay.
3% of the world population lives in the United States, okay? So the other 96, 97% of humans don't live here, but they are potential talent that could help you. And especially in IT, it's only about 10% of talent in IT, and that number is going down. There are more people graduating in all the rest of the world doing computer science and similar things at a faster rate than they are in the United States. There's about 60,000 computer science graduates a year in the United States, and that number everywhere else in the world is far higher. So that tech talent shortage in the US is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And God forbid what's going to happen when we have more and more people retiring from tech, right? Because on average, most tech talent these days is fairly young, right? Not a lot of 65-year-old plus software developers. There's some, not a lot. But eventually, 30, 40 years from now or whatever, that's going to be a big thing too. There's going to be guys like me retiring, right? So it's going to be an even bigger problem.
I thought you already retired, dude.
Well, I'm back.
I like it. You know, don't tell yourself that you can't compete with big companies either. I know we talked a lot about, hey, they could steal your talent or whatever. I was in San Francisco. It's TechCrunch 2019, and I paid a visit to 6 or 7 companies that had been on the podcast. And I asked them, I was like, man, it's got to be really tough. I remember the first meeting, I was like, it's got to be tough to hire people out here. You're competing with all these giants. And they all said to me, these are little companies. They said, nah, no one's really passionate about working for Facebook. I said, really? I bet it pays well. They said, yeah, but everything pays well out here. So it's like, you know, it's back to that passion play. If you can find participants in your company that believe in your cause, that's a form of passion.
Well, at Stackify, we hired actually a lot of people that had worked at Cerner, Garmin, all these other places. And it's like, hey, they did a great job of recruiting people out of college, gave them 3 to 5 years experience, and then they were ready to go do something else. And then, you know, we would recruit them away from those bigger companies. Now, that works for some people. It doesn't work for everybody, though, right? Some people cannot make that shift from the large corporate environment to a really small startup. And that actually might be a bigger problem actually for leaders. Like I hired somebody once that was our chief marketing officer. And of course he's like, well, where's my team of 3 to 5 people to do all this stuff? And it's like, no, you're going to do all this stuff, right? Like that's a giant shift for those people that a lot of them can't deal with. They're not the doers anymore. They're just, you know, strategic thinkers. And at the same time, you'll have people that come in that are used to all these people or all these processes and how they're supposed to do things. You're like, oh, well, I'm used to using HubSpot or Salesforce, and I do this is like my routine or whatever. And they just show up and you're like, I don't know, here's the blank slate, go do it, right? And they don't know what to do, right? So some people are not going to make that jump from the large corporate to an early stage startup. And so that's something you're going to have to probe for and figure out is, can they make that shift? They might bring a lot of great experience, but they might be so like indoctrined in the corporate way of doing things that they may struggle.
Yeah, Kevin from Omaha. No.
Hi, my name is Rich Chungong. I just wanted to ask, especially with both of you guys being in tech, I'm focused in Web3 and NFTs and that whole innovative technology. So my question to you guys would be, with innovative technologies, what would be your guys' advice on finding the right talent when it's, for instance, you know, technology that maybe 5% of people
That's
really
when you
Well-
can create it. That's when you can create it.
I'm hiring people right now that have experience with ChatGPT and OpenAI. I'm looking for people with 10 years of experience of it. Do you know anybody? It doesn't exist, right? Web3 talent doesn't really exist. Yeah, there might be a handful of people that were playing with Ethereum or whatever 4 years ago building stuff. But for all intents and purposes, the talent doesn't really exist, right? You're going to have to create that talent.
Smart, passionate people.
And we we hear this all the time at Full Scale. People are like, oh, I want somebody who has experience with this specific JavaScript framework or whatever it is. And the reality is, if you have somebody that's really smart and somebody who's good at learning, that's the thing. Somebody that's good at learning, they can figure out most things in a couple weeks. Within a couple weeks, you learn like the first 80% of what you're going to learn about whatever the topic is, right? And I really recommend hiring people that are more of a jack of all trades than a specialist, because if they're a jack of all trades, that means they're good at learning. They're good at learning different things. They may not be an expert at all those things, but that means they're really good at learning that 80% that's the most important. Versus there are some people, and we see this with software developers from certain countries, I don't know why, that they only learn one thing and they will never learn more than that one thing. And I don't know why they're like a specialist to the death of this one thing. Like, I only program in Angular JavaScript, I'll never do anything else. That's not good. You'd be much better off with having people that are jack of all trades, that are easy to learn and do other things. Because it's inevitable, like today it's Web 3. Actually, it was yesterday it was Web 3, and today it's Chat GPT. Like, you're way behind the times now, as crazy as that sounds, right? And then next year it'll be something else. And so you're gonna have to find people that can just learn it.
And I had a quick add-on. So at Full Scale, we just refer to emerging technology, because we get a lot of clients that come up and, like Matt said, they're like, hey, I just have this, I need a Python developer with 7 years of experience that also has 6 years of natural language processing skills. And I'm like, if you find that person, call me. As I got a whole list of people that want to hire that person. And in some cases, it's back to smart, passionate people. Smart people solve tough problems, and if that passion piece, and there's a lot of people that are passionate about Web3, so they're going to sit there and just sponge it up. So you have a better chance there. But I still think, didn't I help with a video that will be on the internet at some point with you today, talking about hiring people that are smarter than you? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's smart. It's possible. It's always possible.
Okay, we're close to the 2-minute warning.
Yeah, so first off, thank you. I didn't know, I'm a developer. I didn't know how in demand I was in Kansas City, so thank you for
Congratulations, yeah.
I was there by at least 6 times. I happen also to be an expert in ChatGPT, but someone asked me today.
Do you have 10 years of experience?
Someone asked me today if I had 1 year of experience in ChatGPT, and I tried to explain to them it came out in November, and they didn't know that.
Dude, that's like half my day.
Do you have 100 days of experience? That's what we're looking for.
I mean, if you count like maybe by tomorrow, yeah. So
You should have asked ChatGPT for the answer and then give it to him.
I have to open the iPad then. Okay. But also, if you didn't know, you can pay $20 a month now and get Premier access. So
I'm in, because I'll actually be able to sign in and not told that it's overloaded.
Yeah, if you refresh the page like 5 times, you get back in. So my question was about Kansas City. I've been here for about a year, and it seems like there are a lot of really smart people, but they're all over the place. And so what do you think you would tell either the developer community or the tech community to do in order to like sort of organize better, so that if you were looking for really smart, creative tech people, you'd be able to find them in one place instead of piecemeal like seems like exists right now?
When you say all over the place, you meant like just with the focus of the companies, or like the types of businesses, or?
Yeah, so I'm from New York originally, and their tech people are sort of clustered. So we work at either big companies or smaller companies, but we have happy hours and you meet each other. Here it seems like there are a lot of really smart people, but they don't know each other, and really creative people, but they don't know each other. So like it seems like per capita, Kansas City has more musicians than maybe any other city, but they don't talk to each other.
I used to work in the music industry. You're not wrong about that.
But they don't talk to each other. And so
I think a big part of that is, especially compared to Silicon Valley, New York, places like that, probably a lot of the people that are software developers are also probably younger and single. And you get here and most people are married and they have families and they don't give a shit about any of that stuff anymore. They're done with the networking and all of that. And I would say that's a big part of it here.
I'd say coming to stuff like this is a great start. And, I prefer, this is a small batch. I prefer this over a room of 190 or 500 people. The speaking dynamic is a little different. Mainly I got a chair here and I like that too. But But no, I think that, yeah, going out and talking to people, I think one of the things that we run into, and we've had at this point a couple hundred entrepreneurs from Kansas City on the podcast, and there's some frustrating parts about the ecosystem. And can we just give Kevin McGinnis a hand for doing what he does here? Because when I first met Kevin 5 years ago, oh my God, he was telling me about this vision for all this. And I was like, dude, that's a lot of work. Are you sure you want to do that much work? And he's like, and this is almost where this speech should end. He's like, I'm just really passionate about the whole thing. I'm going to get it done. And the dude did. Yeah. It's true, man. It's true. You can put the wallet away. I already charged your card. But no, but that's the thing. And I think the thing that I hear most in Kansas City is, oh, everyone's talking about it. Nobody's doing it. I know a lot of people that are doing it. Right. And I know that all of those people, John, would you answer his call if he reached out to you? Because I have a feeling you would. Yeah. But my point is the difference between here and New York is people are actually nice here. And with that, but lean into it. Right. Well, but that barrier exists, and it's not just Kansas City, because we talk to entrepreneurs from all over there. We all complain about the same shit from city to city. Yeah.
What's the Facebook group? Okay.
Here in a second. Yeah.
All right. So when you mentioned freeing up your future when letting someone go, is there a certain pitch or is it pretty standard? If I'm walking through your door right now, you're sitting me down, and I just been a shitty employee, right? How are you initiating that conversation?
John, I really want to thank you for your service, but I don't think this is the right role for you. It's time for us to move on. Thanks.
So
That's it. That's the whole thing.
And so I
Yeah.
noticed. So do you not have a certain relationship with these individuals? So for me, I had a tough time letting my first employee go because it was, she's a single mother of 3 and all these different things. Are you just coming in very blunt with it? Or?
No, I do it the right way. I mean, on some levels, I pay people to go away because I'm not a monster. It's the reason I had an assistant role open is because I had one that didn't work out, and I just felt like I was frustrated, wasting my time. I paid someone, a couple weeks to head out the door and do it the right way, because that's it. I'm not trying to wreck people's lives, but I once had a job where one of my jobs was firing people, which was lame. But I learned that nothing that they're going to say is going to change your mind. And it just tear the Band-Aid off. Yeah, they know it. By the way, smart people, when you let them go, will be like, "Man, I did a terrible job, and I regret that." And the people that weren't smart, which might be why you're letting them go, are like, "Man, this is a shock. Like, I've had 6 meetings with you about all of this. Yeah, but this is blindsiding me." So.
All right, guys.
And you're fired.
All right, you can't fire me.
Oh, you're right.
I've tried to fire myself every day for 2 years, so good luck.
I'm unemployable.
Yeah,
So
I got a board member in the room that can testify to that. One sentence from each of you about what you would want people to understand the most, entrepreneurs to understand the most about their talent. Not them as individuals, but the talent that's going to be required for them to grow their companies. One sentence.
Startups don't come with an owner's manual.
Just understanding the talent that you're missing that you need to find.
Oh, see, now I'm going to have to ask a follow-up question on that one. Say more.
Well, like as a software development manager, I know all the employees I have, but I know what my weaknesses are. I need to understand what my weaknesses are, and my next hire, who do I need to bring to the team to help fill the weakness?
You say you know what your weaknesses are. How do you identify them?
I'm smart.
I tell them every
Not
morning.
everybody's good at that.
I tell them every morning. I'm like, dude.
The power of a
Well,
co-founder.
it's understanding your pain points, right? Like, at Full Scale, it's like, oh, we need to hire another marketing person or person to do this. Like, we know where the weakness is, and when you make that hire, you're hoping to fill that weakness, right?
You have to be willing to admit what you suck at. I mean, that's like a key ingredient. Like Matt and I are great. So Matt and I, sometimes I do start my day by telling him shit. Sometimes he does it to me, but we jump right back on that horse. And Matt's good at a lot of stuff that I'm not good at, and the other way around. And that makes a good dynamic. And I also think that makes a good employer-employee relationship.
I got another answer to this.
All right.
I think as a founder in an early stage business, when you think about who to hire, it's also hiring somebody to do the shit you don't want to do. That needs to be done as a business owner, right? Like me, I like to create software, but I don't really want to do sales or whatever it is, right? So it's also just understanding what you don't want to do.
I saw a guy at I don't know if you guys remember when they had Big Kansas City, when Silicon Prairie News had Big Kansas City here. There was a guy that came up and said, create a matrix, create like a matrix that's things you like to do and things you're good at, and then write like in the, like where you spend most of your time. And then those things that you're not good at that you don't like to do, hire someone.
It's the same thing with the passionate thing. It's very similar.
Guys, one of the things we always talk about in the ecosystem, one of the things we need more of is people sharing. And specifically serial founders, serial entrepreneurs, people who've been down the path, people who have experience. So thank you very much.
And we publish a podcast about all that 5 days a week.
I do know
5 days a week. Yeah,
I knew the promo was coming.
Right here,
I knew
right
the promo was
hey,
coming.
I saved it, but I think that's relevant though, because we
Absolutely.
talk about all this stuff, and the number one feedback we get is people, I love that you keep it real. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you were talking about how terrible of a job you did and how painful it was to lose a bunch of money. I'm like, yeah, because it was, and I don't want you to lose it, but that's key.
Thank you, guys.